A few years ago, I traveled to Chile with one of our Spanish trainers, David Villegas, and we were teaching at a crag called Chacabuco. And toward the end of one of our clinics, we heard conversation between a couple of climbers. The climber was up above her pro and pumped and tired and facing a fall, and she asked her belayer, "Is it okay to fall here?" David just looked at me and he said, "Well, Arno, I think you have another topic for your email lessons." And so here it is. When we ask a question, it means that a decision has to be made. And in climbing, in a situation like this, we're making a decision whether or not to commit to continuing. Decisions separate preparation from action. In preparation, we think about the risk, gather information. In action, we take the risk. So this is part of the three phases of risk. So the purpose of the decision is to make sure or to decide if we're taking an appropriate risk. Well, what does it mean to take an appropriate risk? This is where it gets tricky. When someone else is telling us what's appropriate, then we're not relying on our own experience for where the edge of our comfort zone is. So taking an appropriate risk has to point back to our own experience. And what we need to do here is we need to be able to distinguish between what is a yes-fall risk for us and what's a no-fall risk. Now, decision making begins with our analytical, intellectual capacities, ability to think. But it ends with our intuition. We're making our decision based on an intuitive feel about what's appropriate. And that's going to be based on experience. Our experience with falling is going to manifest itself in the amount of resistance that we feel when we're in that particular situation. In other words, we're going to either be in our comfort zone or at the edge of our comfort zone or out of our comfort zone or in a panic zone. That's unique to us in that specific situation. So if we tune into the level of resistance and fear that we're feeling when we're in that unique situation, that fear and resistance is coming up in us based on where we are in that comfort zone, stress zone continuum. So we can take an appropriate risk by tuning into the level of resistance and fear. Falling is the consequence for the decisions that we make. If we rely on others, then we increase the chances of injuring ourselves. And if we do, we're likely to blame them for giving us wrong information. If we rely on ourselves, paying attention to that level of resistance and fear, will diminish the chances of injury, and we'll be able to take full responsibility for our situation so we can learn from them. So if we have to ask, is it okay to fall here? Then we need to become more aware of our own situation. So how can we take responsibility for our decision-making process so that we can be more likely to take appropriate risks? That's an important question to ask ourselves. And we can do that by, first, practice falling so we get more experience of what different fall zones are like. Number two, practice weighing our experience with falling against the unique situation that we're facing. And three, pay attention to the level of fear and resistance that comes up when we're in that unique situation so we can differentiate the level of fear and resistance to make sure we're taking an appropriate risk. So you can practice this. Just whenever you're in a situation like that where you're wondering if it's okay to fall, tune into how much fear and resistance is coming up in you. If it's a high level of fear and resistance, then you're way out of your comfort zone, maybe even in a panic zone, and it's not an appropriate risk. If it's a medium level of fear and resistance, then might be appropriate, might not. If it's a low level, then it's probably appropriate. In the medium level, what you can do is you can probe. You can like engage the situation a little bit, having an experience to either push that resistance and fear high so you know that it's inappropriate, or it shifts to low, which means it'll be more likely to be appropriate. So you know something when you experience it, not before. So if you're still wondering in that medium level of resistance and fear, find a way to take action, probing a little bit so you can push it in one direction or the other. The ESPRESSO Lessons book goes into a lot more detail about this decision-making process. That's the lesson. You can go to warriorsway.com, check out the full text and audio. You can also check out our upcoming courses. You can check out our books. And if you're interested in the way we're approaching mental training, reach out to us. We'd love to work with you. Thanks.